Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lerone Faison. I am the capability owner for Drawback. We have only 1 hour today, so what I want to do is go through the slide deck that we prepared. I'm not going to go slide by slide, but I want to point out some key points. After that, I'm going to turn it over to my business analyst, Michael Yang. He put together 4 examples of filing a drawback claim and ACE that he will walk us through. Are you going to control the, okay. So just for the purposes of level setting this, of course everyone knows that we are cutting over with drawback on January 14th. On that date, that does not mean that you can continue sending us your emails or your concerns and questions to our drawback certification email list. We will work with you guys to get your claims in via ABI. Our team will be standing by. We're going to be trying to do our best to get a timely response back to you post January 14th. So by all means, if you have any issues come post 14th, please send us an email. Also, CBP will be standing up a war room, so you can also contact your client rep, and they will get a hold of us as well. So we will be on site even on that Monday holiday and Friday. We will be in the office on those 2 holidays. So if you have any concerns or issues on those days, we will try to get back to you as soon as possible. All right, so I'm going to jump into this slide. Like I said, I'm going to go over some key points and turn it over to Mike. So again, like I mentioned, we electronically did the drawback. We are encouraging those who can to file electronically. You will get faster response times. We've estimated that claims that have imports of 1,000 or less are getting processed in seconds. Claims that are maxed out with 5,000 imports, exports, and manufacturing articles are taking generally in between 3 to 7 minutes to process. You go to the next slide. So basically, this is our Kater structure of how we're going to do our drawback claim. A couple of key points on this one. Like I mentioned previously, you can have 5,000 imports. You can have 5,000 manufacturing articles. You also can have 5,000 exports or 5,000 NAFTA groupings as well on that. Those are the max that we are allowing in that. That is because when you're talking about collecting of data into a system, we have to set some sort of limit into that, just for a usability aspect of it. It's quite difficult to have a drawback specialist scrolling through 5,000 lines per claim, but that's why we set that limit at 5,000 or so. Go to the next slide. This is our 10 record. Basically, this is similar to what you do for the 7551. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. I did not see a lot of questions surrounding the 10 record, so we just go to the next slide. The next grouping is our bond information. The bond information will be mandatory if you are doing accelerated payment. We will be asking you to provide your bond information if you are select the AP indicator. Things I want to point out about this is if your AP application is pending, then the system will remove that AP indicator from that claim, but the claim will still be accepted. After that, you can continue to work with that drawback specialist to get that AP indicator reinstituted onto that particular claim. That is the same thing goes for if you get a insufficient bond or invalid bond or anything like that. We will remove the AP indicator and accept the claim. You will need to work with your surety or the drawback specialist to get that AP indicator back added to that particular claim. You can go to the next one. So the 40 record is basically your meat and potatoes of your drawback claim. Every drawback claim is going to have a 40, 41, 42, and 43 record. Like I mentioned before, you can have up to 5,000 imports on each claim, of which you can have up to 8 classifications or 41 records, of which you can have 3 quantity UOM groupings for 42 and 9 43 import revenue claims. So we have 9 class codes, so that's why you can have 9 import revenue claims per 40 record. Unless you are manufacturing unless you are doing a manufacturing claim, you're going to have a corresponding 60 record as well for each of them. The action indicator that is unique in this case because it is driving how the claim structure is going to be moving forward. You should go to the next slide. Now the action, I can't see that. Okay. Like I mentioned before, the action indicator is critical to determine the structure of your claim. On an export 60 record, if you are claiming an export, you can use the following. I'm not going to read through each one of them. You can see that. If you're doing a destroy, you will basically do the D. If you're doing manufacturing, you do the X and the T. Basically, we are asking you for that particular 40 record, what did you do with that particular import? Did you export it? Was it destroyed? Was it manufactured? Was it manufactured and transferred? So that's why we're looking at that action indicator. You go to the next slide. Now for the manufacturing produced article, the key point I want to make out here is that we are looking at the manufacturing ruling number application for filling out this information. So that means that information that you're inputting should coincide to that manufacturer ruling. Things such as basis of claim, we'll be checking the dates. We'll also be checking against that manufacturing ruling application. And also, if you are doing a pending manufacturer ruling, you will do your series of 9 that indicates that this is a manufacturer ruling that is pending. For your 60 record, this is your export destroy section. Like I alluded to, so every import that you claim should come down to a 60 record assigned to it. Key features on this one is the BOL indicator, country of ultimate destination, others. Again, you can have up to 5,000 exports claimed on your claim. Now the notice of intent, this is optional in ABI, but this is mandatory in paper. This is still in paper. So this means because we could not automate the signature of the officer, you still have to upload your notice of intent through DIS, but you do not have to input it on your ABI transmission. But if you start to fill out the 62 record, you will be required to input the 63 record. So this is optional until you start inputting information into this field. The notice of intent is still in paper and will require a DIS upload of it. The NAFTA detail grouping, like I mentioned before, you can have up 5,000 per claim. The data elements found on the NAFTA coding sheet have been converted to electronic data elements. If you specify NAFTA in your 10 record, then of course you will have to do the NAFTA detail grouping. And here's the 89 record is also mandatory. This is basically the sum of all your 43 records. I'm not going to go through each of the sums, but you can see that on the spreadsheet, like the grand totals. We're looking at the grand total for each particular class code, and we broke it down in the presentation to how you will need to calculate it. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Yang. He put together some examples of how to transmit a drawback claim in ACE, and that he's going to walk us through now.
Hello everyone, my name is Michael Yang. I'm the business analyst for the drawback application. I'm going to go over a series of about 4 different types of examples that of a sample ABI transmission into ACE for drawback is going to look like. So if we go into our first example here, we can get started. So our first example here is a vanilla claim. It's a very simple scenario. It is one import, one export drawback claim with two privileges, accelerated payment and waiver of prior notice. On the right-hand side here, you will see a sample of what the ABI transmission will look like coming into CVP, coming into ACE, and how it's broken down into each individual section. So at the very top of every ABI transmission, we will always start with the AB block, and that will contain your filer code, where you're filing from, and what the date of the transmission is going to be. Following that, you will have the 10 record, which is essentially the header level information of the drawback claim. In the 10 record, you're going to have information like your drawback claim number, your privilege information, and what sort of privileges you're filing for this drawback claim. In this particular case, if you see here next to the 15, the two Y's there signify AP and WPN. Following that, we have the bond details grouping. We're putting that in there because this is an AP claim. Therefore, the bond details is required for this type of scenario. And then following that, we have the imports grouping. So you'll see here, I've indicated for you on the 40 record, we are designating this as an export. We are exporting this particular import. So we have the entry number and the line number there. And we also, on the 41 record, are designating what tariff classifications we are using for this particular import. As you'll see here, between the 40 and the 60 grouping, the imports grouping and the exports grouping, you'll notice that the indicators, the action indicators, the ones that are designated in green, are exactly the same. So basically, from a drawback specialist point of view, we know what you are doing with this particular import. You're exporting it. Similarly, the HTS also correspond with each other. So the HTS numbers in the 41 record will correspond with the HTS numbers in the 60 record. 42 record, we have the quantities that you're reporting on this particular import, and then on the 43 record is where we capture the financial information that you're requesting on this particular import. And you'll notice here the 43 record and the 89 and 90 records correspond with each other. So 43 designates 399 for MPF, and on the 89 record, which is summing up all the total of your accounting class codes, will also contain 399. And similarly, the amounts in the 43 record will be summed up in the 90 record. So I'm going to go on to the next example here. On the next example, we have a sample manufacturing claim. In this particular case, we have two imports, one manufacturing record, and then we exported that manufacturing record. And in this case, we do not have any drawback privileges on this particular claim. So again, we start off with the AB block. On the 10 record, again, we're submitting information like the claim number, the claimant ID number, what type of drawback provision you are filing. In this particular case, is the 02-1313B. There are no privileges in this particular case. That's why you'll see the blank space between the 02 and the X23. And again, in the imports grouping, we have a lot going on here in this particular case. So again, we always start off each 40 record with the action indicator, what we are intending to do with this particular claim, or with this particular import. In this case, we are manufacturing. That's why you'll see the X here. Further down this line, on the first 40 line, you will see something called the manufacturer ruling number. That is a key field or data element that you'll need to include on each 50 record. So again, from the top, imports, we have two imports we are manufacturing in this particular case. and we're combining it into one single 50 record that is tied together by the manufacturer ruling number. So everything that's been highlighted in the dark brown color corresponds with each other. For the HTS numbers, again, we are tying them together, and so the two imports are being manufactured into a different product, and then that particular product is being exported out to Canada. And again, in the 43 records, we have 364 for 10 cents. And on the second 40 record, we also have 364 for 10 cents. So again, in the 89 record, we have accounting class code totaling those amounts for 364. And in the 90 record, we're combining them into the grand total duty amount. So I'm going to move on to the next example here. We've received a lot of questions about how a max type 40 record grouping would look like in an ABI transmission. So what I've done here is I've broken down exactly what one 40 record would look like in an ABI transmission. And remember, you can repeat this same 40 type grouping up to 5,000 times per drawback claim. So again, as we stated earlier, you'll always start off with a single 40 record, and we can have up to 8 41 records for every 40 record. So you can have up to 8 different HTS numbers on a particular entry. Every tariff classification can have up to 3 different types of quantity or unit of measure classes. So you can have 3 42 records for every 41 record. And then at the very end here, after you've finished all of this, your 41s and 42s is when you will enter your revenue information for this particular import. So at the very end, you can have up to 9 different types of class codes on this particular import entry. So again, just to summarize, one 40 record can be repeated 5,000 times, and then you can have up to 8 tariff classifications for every import entry number that you have. You can have up to 3 different type of quantity and unit of measures for each import classification, tariff classification, and you can have up to 9 different accounting class codes being claimed on a particular import entry summary. And I'll move on to our last example here. In this particular scenario, we have multiple manufacturer ruling numbers. So again, we have multiple, we have 2 imports we are combining into a single manufacturing ruling number, and then we are further manufacturing that into another record, into another product and exporting that. So again, the ruling numbers used in the 40 record will be tied into the 50 record, and you'll notice here on the red underlined ruling number that will be used to generate another manufacturing record. And so with that, that is all the examples we have today.
Okay, that's great. So we have about 35 minutes left, so we'll open it up to questions.
Okay, you want me to read the question around? First question we have is, how will the harbor maintenance fee and merchandise processing fee be processed if the CF 7553 is not required.
So that's going to be electronically when you're submitting the data through Drawback. We're going to be able to calculate that, and that's going to be included correctly in one of the examples. I think we saw that. So I would say follow the examples that were just provided by Michael, and then you know, that's basically how we're going to do that electronically through the Drawback system.
Okay, next question. Will the desk reviews be mailed through USPS to the claimant and filing broker?
So the desk reviews aren't going to, they're not going to change. We're not changing any of the desk review process right now. The way you're getting them today or last week is still going to be the manner that you're going to get them after July 14th.
Okay. Next question. When sending DIS, do we send each report individually or in a folder?
So this is maybe a little more of a technical question, but we've kind of run into this in some of the other pieces of functionality that we have, and I think we'd be able to do either way.
Yes.
It depends on what's best for you. If you can send them individually, and that's the only way that you can do, send us those DIS transactions, and that's fine. But then, you know, the folder is also available, and you can also do that.
Okay. Next question. Will we be able to submit drawback backup reports by uploading to an Excel spreadsheet?
I think that references some sort of template. We won't have a template, but you will be able to upload those documents to DIS as well.
Okay, next question. How would a filer know if CBP systematically removed the AP claim?
You're going to receive a response message back, basically telling you, hey, this AP indicator has been removed due to insufficient bond.
Thank you, Lerone. Please explain when to use the T and X action indicators.
Great. Basically, so I think this is reference to our manufacturing ruling. So when you are, let me look at, put that slide back up. So when you are manufacturing that claim, you will use the X for that particular one. When you're doing multiple imports that have been manufactured and then have been transferred to another exporter, that's when you would do the T. But even if you do the M and T, you will still have to do a corresponding 60 record. I hope that explains it.
So let me just say real quick before the next question. If we don't get to your question, or you know, we want to maybe get back to you, we're going to be able to download these questions and put them on cbp.gov. We'll do maybe an FAQ type document that you will be able to view, and we'll have a little bit more time trying to answer some of these questions. It'll probably be a little bit better for you to maybe go through and look at some of these things. So that's ultimately, I think, what we'll be able to do based on some of your questions. So, and we'll send out a CSMS message when we're done, and we're posting this up on cbp.gov. So just to let you know that we know there's a lot of questions out there right now. So if we don't get to you, we'll be able to address it somehow, somewhere. Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. Next question. What is an STB account number for single entry bond claims?
The single transaction bond, I think that's what the surety issues out, the account number. that we asked for.
Okay, next question. Will manual claims be limited to 50 or 25 imports?
So as that stands right now, that's what we're limiting it to. 25, I believe, is what we have on our as far as policy is concerned. I can tell you that we're discussing right now if we need to broaden that those import claims. But as it stands right now, I think we're at 25. And it's going to stay there until we have something that comes back. We're really working with our operational office also because it really impacts them if we loosen that policy decision up and include all of the import entries. It really is going to impact our operational drawback centers, and it's going to impact, I think, your drawback processing also. So we're taking and weighing all of those concerns, and so we'll update that. If we do update it, we'll certainly send you out a notification, whether a CSMS message or update our business rules.
Okay. Next question. Will CBP be lifting the import limits for manual claims if a filer has problems when filing on January 14th and for a few weeks thereafter?
So I just answered that. So maybe I missed the first question, but I just answered that. We don't intend to lift that policy decision right now. But we are discussing that. So.
And from the technical team side, we are willing to help you out in any way that we can if you're having issues filing a drawback claim. I know those who've been working with us in the certification environment, they have the email address. If you have issues come January 15th and the 16th, please send those issues in. We will respond back to you as quickly as we can to help to resolve it. We will try to walk you through how to submit that drawback claim successfully if any issue. If all else fails, then we will look at allowing a manual drawback claim to be filed.
Okay, next question. If a filer is forced to use manual filing, how and when will the claim be inputted for accelerated payment?
Well, the how is the drawback specialist will have to manually input all that information into the UI. How long that would take, I don't know. If it's 25 imports, depending on how many classifications or manufacturing rulings is tied to that particular claim, it could take a lengthy amount of time on that piece of it. I would have to leave that open-ended, but from the how-to is that the drawback specialist will have to manually input each of that.
Lerone? This is Mary Ann Carney. The policy for that is not going to change. If it's an electronic claim, we are mandated to pay in 3 weeks. If it's a manual claim, we have up to 90 days.
Okay. Thanks, Mary Ann.
Okay, this is a follow-up question on the X&T. Can you provide examples that are more complex with multiple rulings and using both the X&T action indicator showing how they are used in the 40, 50, and 60 records and how they need to be grouped?
So, Michael, we can do that, but we've also asked for the trade to come up with some of these examples, just so we know that we're addressing trade concerns. The examples I think that Michael had today were good, high-level, basic to complex examples. But if we have some concerns that that maybe the trade can come to us and say, hey, what about this type of scenario? That would be great. And you know, we'd just open it up to everybody on the phone and on the webinar that you know, we would be happy to field some of these scenarios, and then turn around and make those scenarios public, so we can have some examples, some real world examples.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Next question. I have only counted 7 accounting codes being used. Are there going to be 2 more codes in the future?
That's probably was a miss. I'm probably misinformed on that one. It probably is only 7. Let me take a look at it, and I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. Also follow up, in example 4 in the PowerPoint, why are you not using the T action indicator?
In this particular case, the claimant ID was the same as, the drawback claimant was the same as the exporter, so we did not feel the need to use the T indicator. But if in the situation that had occurred, we would have to use the T action indicator.
Okay, don't know if this is possible, but can you walk through an example of the 43 record calculated amount field?
We could probably put something together and send something out. It probably take too much time to kind of walk through it right now. So let us put something together and we can send something out to the group.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Next question: Do social security numbers count for foreign entity when filing SED?
We'll have to get back to you on that one. You know,
I don't even know what SED is.
Shippers export.
Shippers export declaration for exports.
Yeah.
And
So
it's now export, electronic export.
Yeah. Okay.
So can we get back to you on that? We'd love to do that.
Okay. Next question: for claims form and FTZ 06 weekly withdrawal, with your limit of classifications per entry, do we use a new 40 record for additional classifications for that one large entry?
So this is a good scenario that we can bring back with us, because I know the weekly 06 withdrawal is pretty large. It's and we'll need to work through this scenario actually. So this is a good question, and we'll get back to you.
Okay. Next, could CVP clarify on the 5,000 limit if it is a limit of 5,000 import entries or import line items?
So 5,000 import entries.
Okay. What if we have more than 8 HTS numbers on an import entry? Can you repeat a 40 record with the same entry number and then use the 8 different HTS codes?
Is that a real example? We need to see an example of an entry that has 8 HTSs. Is that something you can provide us? That has more than 8.
Okay, next question. Is the HTS limit on 40 records per claim? What if we have 50 with 50 different HTS numbers? Do we have to limit to only 8 lines per claim?
Per 40 record. the HTS limit. Yeah, so it should be per 40 record for the HTS limit. So you can have 5,000 import records, and then you can have your maximum of HTS per each 40 record.
Correct. So if you have 5,000 unique import entries, each with unique HTS numbers, you could have up to 40,000 HTS numbers on a single drawback claim.
Okay, next question. How do we upload via DIS the 7553?
So those DIS instructions are online. They're also included, I believe, in the CATER method, in the CATER book. So you can definitely go ahead and look at those instructions. They're fairly easy. You can email them. There's an email method, and there's also a method through EDI. So those are they're available out on the internet.
Okay, next question. What validations are there?
So there's a bunch of validations out there.
Yes, over 300 validations that we have built in for the drawback claim. If there's a specific validation you want to speak to, just let us know. I know we've been working with the drawback working group as far as going over some of the validations concerns. If there's additional concerns, just let us know, and we'll work to address them.
And we have those out on appendix, right, in the CATER. They're included in the drawback chapter.
Yes.
So you can also look those, I think it's appendix B. But in the drawback chapter, there are a list of validations, error messages that we have out there.
Okay. Will non-duty items, for example, cotton fee, IR tax, have changes to how to upload information? Have changes on how to upload information?
So we can get back to you on this. Like I said, we're gonna hopefully have a FAQ out there as soon as possible so we can address some of these scenarios. We'll definitely take this one back and address the non-dutiable items and the upload information. So we'll definitely look for that. Remember that when we have those FAQs ready, we'll probably post a CSMS message to identify or to let you guys know that it's out there and where it's located.
Okay, another one related to the HTS numbers. What are the options available if there will be more than 8 HTS numbers per import entry, or is this only applied to manufacturing?
Well, I think if you could provide them an example of an import having more than 8 HTSs, and we can take it back to the team and give you a better answer.
Okay, will drawback remain in the search environment after January 14th so we can continue testing improvements or changes?
Yes.
Again, related is what if an import entry has more than 8 HTS numbers? I think we'll get back to you on that one.
Yep.
Will drawback be worked at every port and by all ISs or still by drawback locations? And by all import specialists, let's go by drawback locations.
So right now, the 4 drawback centers are going to be operational. They're still operational, and they're going to continue to be that way. And that's right now. We really haven't heard anything specific. So your drawback locations are Newark, San Francisco, Chicago, and Houston. Those drawback specialists that are assigned there will be working your drawback claims as they did yesterday, and as they will past January 14th. So an import specialist is not going to work your drawback. They're going to be drawback specialists, and it's not going to be spread out to every port. It's still going to be at those 4 drawback locations.
And I just want to clarify about the HTS. We're saying that you can have up to 8 HTS per import line. Now, if there's an import line that has more than HTSs, please send us that example. We're not talking about the entire claim. Per import line, you can have up to 8 HTSs.
Okay, next question. Do we submit desk review replies through ACE or manually?
So desk review replies are going to be done as they are today. We didn't touch any desk review information. So the way you're doing desk reviews and replies yesterday are the same that we're going to do in January, past January 14th.
Do I need to create a new ACE account, and if so, what account type should I use?
No. We do not have a specific drawback claimant account type. We are asking users to file through ABI. For the AP and waiver of prior notice, those privileges, they're going to be added to the 5106. And that's how it's going to be updated and tied to that particular import.
So let me add something else. It doesn't necessarily pertain to this, but if you would, if we're dealing with the ACE account, you don't have to do that. Follow Laron's instructions. But if you would, contact your client representative, and just to ensure that your EDI profile is correct and updated, so you can file on January 14th, or as soon as the deployment is done. That would be very good if you just double check that. That would be very important, so there's no bumps in service. Also, continue to test up until that date. Make sure that you're talking to your client representative and you're submitting your test data.
Okay, this question again is related to exports. Can we use an American passport number for a foreign entity when filing the electronic export information?
We can get back to you on that. That's more of an export issue, but we'll definitely include that in our FAQs that we're going to post on cbp.gov.
Okay. Is there any further guidance on making the 7501 line number mandatory for a drawback filing?
So not at this time, right? We're not validating on the line number or the HTS number with this deployment. However, that is part of the TIFTIA drawback simplification law that was passed, and so we are working towards that validation, and it's going to be a part of the next drawback deployment, February 2018. So we are looking at that, and you will be seeing further guidance on that line item edit in the future. So thank you for asking that, though.
Okay, I hope I'm reading this question correctly. At what point in time do line numbers take effect? As of today or 3 years ago?
So not as of today. So the way TIFTIA was written and this line item implementation is going to take effect is that through this deployment, January 14, 2017, you're going to have the existing deployment, what we're planning on deploying on January 14. In February 2018, we'll have that dual system, right? You'll have that transition period for that year where you can use this existing system or the new line item edit or that new drawback simplification deployment. And so then after that, February 2019 is when TASIA takes place, drawback simplification is implemented, and we're going to be fully electronic and be validating at the line level.
Okay, and referencing back to the examples, on example 2, the 43 record shows a different amount after the 10 cents. What is that amount?
That amount on the 43 record is the calculated amount. Again, this was a purely fictional test data, so that is why it is the way it is.
Okay, will filing drawback be mandatory in ACE on January 14th, or will paper submissions still be allowed?
It is not mandatory. Paper submissions are going to be allowed, but we highly advise you to use the electronic method. The drawback in paper is going to be a slower method than what we're than the electronic method. And if we have any issues, as Lerone said, with the electronic method, we'll end up we'll be able to turn those validations and those issues around as soon as we can and take care of everything electronically.
Okay, next question. Uploaded documents will be thousands of pages versus Excel. Will these be accepted, or will they crash the system?
Well, if you're doing DIS via ABI, there's no limit or maximum on the how many documents you can transmit. If you're doing it through email, then yes, you'll have to break down those documents into pieces to get that uploaded into DIS.
Will you accept electronic signatures on uploaded forms?
Yes, we can accept electronic signatures.
Can we also send documents via the ACE portal?
No, not as it relates to drawback.
If an HTS code appears multiple times on one entry, can they be totaled, or do they need to be split out by tariff line number?
They would need to be split out by the tariff line number. Okay,
it sounds like the merchandise processing fee will be included with drawback submissions in ACE. Is this correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Next question is, my yearly imports are over 1.2 million alone. Conair has 3 FTZs. I'm sure I'm going to exceed the 41 record type. What options do I have?
Can you send us maybe you can email that drawback certification at cbp.dhs.gov with your question and provide us an example, and we can get back to you.
Okay, next question. Can customs store the data being given? There are many people who will have 100,000 to 800,000 lines per month. Breaking that up is cumbersome, but let's say we do. You still get 100,000 or more 40 lines per claim. Again, 43 for drawback. Again for MPF, again for HMF, and again for exports. That is 200 megabytes per claim, possibly, and 2 gigabytes per year. And for many clients, I don't think CBP can store that data, even if we can break it up.
So we can take that back, and if you could email that drawback certification email box, I think that would be a good example that we could take that back and ask. It's a technical issue, right? I mean.
Okay. Is it only the drawback specialist located at the drawback centers who will be reviewing the submissions?
That's correct.
Will a CF 7551 and supporting reports be required to be submitted in DIS for every claim, or will the docs required message be returned to the claimant/broker?
Supported documents will only be needed to upload it to DIS only if requested by the drawback specialist upon a desk review.
Drawback requires an export summary report by date, export summary by part, imports by entry number, imports by part. Those printed to be uploaded are huge.
Agreed.
Thank you, Aaron. After successfully submitting a claim on the new system, what is the estimated time to receive payment?
Claim on the new system, what is the estimated time to receive? Well, if it's accelerated payment, then it will be the normal process of how it's done today. I don't have a time frame when it's not accelerated payment.
What? Oh, yeah. It's going to be the same as you're experiencing today, so it's not going to impact the January 14th deployment.
Okay, another one for in the 40 records, the CVP entry summary line is optional. If I do not enter the line number, will that cause issue with multiple 40 records for the same import?
No, because we're not doing our revenue validations at the line level right now. But once we make that line number mandatory, that's when it will be required at that time.
Okay. At what point will the CVPO review the 7553 to determine if an exam is required?
That process has not changed from today.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same because you have to get that done prior to your claim.
Okay. Business Rules 18.8.2 indicates manual claims are limited to 25 import elements. Please define what you are considering by elements.
Those are entries, right?
Like part numbers, and we're talking about like part numbers when we're talking about the 25.
Okay.
Is that correct, Marianne?
Lerone, it's Sonia. Yes, it's 25 data elements per section. So in the import section, it's either 25 imports with one part number each, or 25 total part numbers, however you decide to split it up. Same on the manufacturing section and same on the export section.
You okay on that? Okay. Is there discussion of increasing the claim limits to above 5,000? This is going to increase our claim filing volume from claims per month to 200 claims per month for some clients.
I can see the increases, and I feel the frustration that everybody has. But from a system perspective, it's just not in the best way from a system perspective to have more than 5,000 imports or coming in on these drawback summaries. It will slow down the system from a UI perspective. We can't expect the drawback specialist to be scrolling through page after page trying to validate these imports. It's just too much. So at this time right now, the 5,000 is what the limit is going to be.
Skip this one.
Can you clarify the HTS limitations on a manufacturing claim? Is it per item or per 7501?
I think I need a little bit more information to answer that question. So can you just email us at that drawback certification at dhs.cbp.gov, and we'll get back to you on that.
Not sure we're going to have time for this. Can you show us how the ACE portal will work and where and how to submit on the ACE screen?
So you can't submit a drawback through the ACE portal. That's number one. So pretty quick, we're not going to be able to show you this. But you can, talk to a software vendor, talk to a client representative if they're available, so they can get you set up and send your drawback data through our ABI transmissions.
Okay, we're getting close to the end. If a company manufactures aircraft but is not the exporter, what needs to be done for the company to file a claim?
It's the same process as today, and in the export section, it will ask you who the exporter is, and if you are not the exporter, you need to identify in your transmission that you have the export transfer rights.
Okay, we file 1313J1 direct identification drawback. Are we still required to submit the reports via DIS, or does the electronic ABI submission suffice?
The 7551 is now is automated, so the ACE transmission replaces the 7551 if you're transmitting the claim through ACE.
All right, thanks, Sonia. So I think we're going to have to stop at this point. What we're going to do is take these questions back and try to address all of them. I will pass them on to Randy for him to post up, and we will hopefully get back to you. Now, if you have any additional questions, please continue to feel free to populate the online task. Also, you have the drawback certification email distro list, and we'll try to address you that way as well.
You also have another resource, the OT drawback email that you can also send questions to. You also have not only the FAQ that will be posted up, but there's the ACE Business Rules that has the chapter on drawback. If you look at that chapter, it's very high level. If you want more detail, make sure you get back to that OT drawback email box, and we can address anything that you want us to address in that ACE Business Rules handbook. So that's all we have.
Thank you all for attending. Have a good day.